You all set?
All right. So we're going to try this, see if it tracks or not, or it's just going to show the podium. All right. So this is a little bit different talk, I think, than what normally happens at this. Thank you, Sancho. That I think happens at this group. So I wanted to give a talk on like, you have the Azure stuff, but how do you become a cloud architect? And what do they do? And so that's what I'm going to have this talk be about. But first, I'm going to turn on my clicker. Tell you a little bit about me. I'm Matt Huck. I've been in technology for a long time, 30 plus years. Actually, my son's here, who is going to hopefully say, wow, your dad, you know a lot of stuff. But anyway, so I worked in a couple startups, even on one of them. Matt really worked with us on one of them. I've been in every role. In college, I did just back in the day when there was computer operators, where you had to print out forms. I came in and print out insurance forms for my dad at that time, and we sent them off to insurance companies. Now, during that time when I worked for him, it went to electronic, which was like, that's one of the big things is sending claims electronic. I've been here at Kiewit for 6 years, and then I always like to put down a little bit about me. I'm an average golfer. I have golf. I like to golf around. We have one in Phoenix. The one in the middle is Pebble Beach. Actually got to play there at a conference. And one of the places I play out in Colorado. I also like to hike. That's me at on top of Gray's Peak in Colorado. That's over 14. And I travel a lot. That's my wife and I. We travel now that we kick the kids out of the house and we can go and travel. All right. So one thing we do here at Kiewit, we talk about safety, and we do like even a safety briefing in our presentations. Also, I want to let you guys know through that back door or this door, you can go ahead and use the restrooms on either side. If there is any kind of drill we have to do, we'll probably just go out the front door here. And I don't think there's a tornado, and we have to go into the bathrooms. But anyways, this is kind of a lot of our big presentations. This is something we do. All right, I just want to let you know today I'm a little tired. The architecture team today went and did a habitat build. This is us. We were down on 33rd and Bedford, and we framed in the basement. You can see some of them we're just talking. That's one of our managers there, Curtis, and one of our cloud architects, just taking a break while the rest of us were working. And just to see the job site, the one we worked on was right behind here. We finished the basement and we put floor joists in, and then we put the floor. And we did all that before 3:30. But so if I'm a little sluggish, because that's what we did today. Disclaimer: these are everything in this. These are like a lot of my opinions. Is how we run the team here. This is not another place may do some things different. They may do a lot of them the same. But just make sure you know these are a lot of my positions on how I run the team here. All right. So does anybody have an idea what a cloud architect does all day long? You can shout it out if you have an idea. What do we do? Read. You read? Okay, I think I might have that one. Anything else?
Meetings.
Meetings. I think I have that one too. Yeah, we have a lot of meetings. Come on, Bob. What do you do all day?
Design.
Design. Okay.
Step on the cloud.
All right. Here, I'll go through mine. I say that's a good question. A lot of times we just go around and say, hey, that's good. Let me think about that. We sit around and think all day. How many people think that's what we do? We think about the cloud. How are we going to put things together? What should we do with the cloud? And then some people might think, well, we tell them how they did not build using the resources that we have. You didn't build it right. And so that leads to the next one. They say no to everything. Cloud architects, nope, don't do that. Can't use that resource. Nope, don't do it that way. Don't implement it that way. Here's how you implement it. Some people think that's what we do. I think if you talk to software development teams, they probably think cloud architects. Why are you shaking your head? Yeah, Donna. But I think that's what probably the software development teams think. Hey, those guys, they just figure out how not to use the resources the way we want to use them. Cloud architects, they slow the rest of us down. I mean, there you just gotta, I know I can watch a YouTube video. I know how to use it. Cloud architect, get out of my way. Slow me down. And here's the last thing. They sit around, browse the web all day. So that's what I think sometimes some people think the cloud architecture team does. Now, granted, we are in the web a lot. We have to look at some things, but I think that's what some people think. And then we do attend a lot of meetings. We work with a lot of teams. So yeah, we do attend a lot of meetings. All right. Why would you want to be an architect? Anybody got an idea why they want to be an architect? Anybody? Huh?
Design solution.
Design solutions. You know, I didn't put that one down, but that's probably a good one. That's probably what they should want to do. I have all the things I think people think about. More money, right? I mean, architect. I mean, it's developer, architect. We're the smart ones, so we want more money. Play with all the cool things. I mean, I'm tired of just write code and solutions and that kind of stuff. I want to play with all the new stuff. Hey, all this AI that's out there. Hey, all this Kubernetes container crap. It's all this fun stuff. Why I want to do that. I want more control, and maybe that is on the design system. I want to make sure the resource, define what the teams can use. I want to design the system. I want to tell them, here's how you're going to do it. This is what you're going to be able to do. I want all that control. I put the last one down here. I'm smarter than the rest of them, so I should be the architect. I mean, I know how the system should go together. I'm the smart one, so I should be in charge of the technology. Hey, I'm an expert. I'm the subject matter expert. I know this stuff better than anybody else. I've taken the classes. I've done the testing. I know this stuff. So yeah, it's time to be an architect. And one last thing, I just need to move up the ladder. You just come out of college, I don't know, depends on how your company does it. You're a software engineer, software developer 1, junior developer, then you lose the 1 or you become 2. And then sooner or later, you got to go, well, I got to go somewhere. I'm the lead guy. Now I got to go to architecture or I got to go into management. So I just need to move up the ladder. And some people, it's like a cool title. If you're into titles, yeah, architect, especially now, I renamed our team to Emerging Technology and Architecture. Sounds pretty cool, because we do work with all the cool stuff, all the new stuff, and that's what the cloud architects do. But we also look at all other cloud applications too, and it's kind of cool. I mean, Santos, it's kind of cool all the stuff you get to do.
Of course. Yeah.
One of the best titles, if you're into titles, I think Microsoft's the best at it. One time, I think they were just sales engineers, but they at one time used to have Microsoft Technology Evangelists. I don't know if they have that title anymore. I mean,
advocates.
Advocates, yeah. I mean, but that was like, it was like you're just here on all the sales calls. So anyway, all right. Here's a little video I have. Say what we do on a daily basis. All right, so that's just wanted to say that's what sometimes it could feel like being an architect. And you're going to see in some of the slides what our job here at Kiewit is, and then because we're in the middle of a lot of things. Anyways, I'm going to give you an overview of what a cloud architect, what I think it is. We're going to go over some core responsibility, activities, and questions. But if you have questions during, just jump out, just say them. There's only a few of us here, so might as well just make it more friendly, just have it come out. So if you're going to do any presentation, the first thing you do is, now used to be you would do a Google search. And I have to go to Pilot or to Gemini and ask it what it is. So I went out there and I found a couple of them just so that we could say, hey, because now everything you have to use AI. So I had to put AI in the presentation. What does Copilot say? I mean, they're not too far off, the two of them, but they're basically saying professional responsible for designing, managing, organizing the cloud computing strategy. So it comes down to implementing, overseeing the cloud infrastructure, services, applications, ensure these solutions are secure, cost effective, aligned with the business and their requirements. So, I mean, that we can just end on that. I mean, I was saying if that is all we got, I mean, it really doesn't really say how do we do it. And so right now I'm going to go into some of those type of things. One of the things you have to know is where does the cloud architect fit? I put us in the center. So there's our cloud architect. Who does he work with? So the cloud architect should not be the admin of the cloud. He may not even have admin rights inside the cloud. Remember, he's designing, he's figuring out. He's not answering tickets. He's not helping people with their bugs. They're not helping them how they're using it. But he engages with the sysadmins. And in here, we call them our platform engineers, our platform operation team. They're the ones that are answering tickets. They're the ones that we tell, here's the ones that are approved technologies. Here's how we're going to use them. But we don't normally get in the mix unless it gets to like, we need to bring in like Santosh or Mo, one of our other architects, who may know a little bit more in how these things should be set up as an application developer. The sysadmin just knows what's out there and how it should be configured, but maybe not how it engages with our apps. I took this slide off of this image. You're going to have the dev teams, the code monkeys. So if there's any code monkeys in there, sorry, man. But I had this. This is on a slide deck I did at HCC a couple years ago, so I went and found it. I liked this slide. Yeah, the developers. They all want to use the cool stuff up in the cloud. They may not even know how they want to use it. They just know they want to use it because that's great for my resume. If I can put down I do containers and Kubernetes, I may not even have anything to do with how AKS may run inside of cloud, but I'm going to put it on my resume. So you're going to deal with those on how applications are going to be built at your company. So that cloud architect is going to deal with them. And last but not least, InfoSec. This is our InfoSec team. A lot of times, and you'll see it on the next slide or the next one, but our InfoSec team here is make sure our data is secure. What's happening at our perimeter, what's happening at our desktops, who's accessing what, you're going to engage with them. So when you are looking at a new technology, how are we going to secure it? How are people going to access it? So our InfoSec team is normally going to plug their tools in so they can audit what's happening. And they're going to have a little bit of say in how things are put together also. So like in that little video, you have all these people with different opinions on how things should be running. And you're the guy in the middle saying, nope, this is how we're going to do it. But what are some of the skills you need? Given, I think you need to know one of the cloud. Now I would suggest, I know this is an Azure user group meeting. I suggest if you work for a big company, you're going to need no more than one cloud. Get certified, get knowledgeable. I mean, you're going to need to know that as cloud architect. Probably going to want to know that even if you're a developer or any of the other roles. Oh, one thing I go back is you're also going to know the on-prem. Unless you're a company that has everything in the cloud, we still have stuff that, like at Kiewit, we have stuff on-prem that we need to get to. Do we want to get to it from the cloud? Do we want someone from Azure to come down onto our on-prem resources? How do you secure that? InfoSec has a big say on that one. So does our platform team. You should know software development. You should know how your software teams develop code. How do they put it together? How do they manage that code? How do they deploy that code? What kind of resources do they need? You need to know that because you need to probably put in some guardrails for them. And we'll talk about that, some of the things you need to do for that. But you need to know that. And I kind of like that if you come up through that ranks, you kind of know how you do it in your organization. But you need to know what kind of, how do you develop software? It's good to know databases. If you don't know it, everything is about data now. I mean, if I could have put big data in there too, that'd been a nice little buzzword too. Cloud architects, how they manage big data. There could be a talk right there. Big data it's all about big data. What do you do with big data? You do AI stuff with it. So how does your cloud manage that? Are you just doing blob storage and throwing an Azure Data Lake? Are you using Avro Parquet files? Are you going to throw Databricks over top of that? If you don't know any of those terms, you better know them. That's what the database team wants you to bring to them. And there's a lot more terms. I mean, even if you go to, and then of course, if you do anything in Google, they got their big query. You need to know that. And then how do you get data in their buckets? And so it's just amazing. You should know enough to know what those terms are, why you need them. And it's good to know for technical skills. DevOps and automation. How do we create all these resources? Are you doing anything with infrastructure as code? Who manages the infrastructure code? Who's responsible for it? How do we do all that? Do the devs team have a play in it? How do we release code? If I'm doing function apps, I'm doing logic apps, how do I deploy all that? How do I automate all that? Cloud architects need to know that. Because you're going to see on the next slide what we have to do on all of that. Networking. So I mentioned about, hey, you got your on-prem, you got cloud. Big thing that we're doing right now is we've gone to a hub and spoke vibe, Bob, and we're going to do a lot of private endpoints now. Well, how do you set the networks for that?
Finally,
only 5 years later. Vibod worked here at Kiewit, and he was a champion of that 5 years ago. So
I think 4.
4, okay, but it only took 3. So we're making progress. But you need to understand what how do I set up that? Where are all these subnets and VNets and all that? What does that all mean? It's not that you have to know it, but you need to know who to go talk to sometimes. The sysadmin, maybe draw it out, understand it. Those are all some of the technical skills you need to know. Security. I mean, this is like given. If you're working in any kind of company, everybody's afraid of their data being stolen, getting a data breach, having my hard drive taken over by someone and doing a ransomware. What about your stuff in the cloud? How are you managing all that kind of stuff? So how are you securing it? How are you working with the InfoSec? How are they watching all the logs in all your applications and all your resources? How are you delivering all that to them? All right. So that's okay, go ahead.
Quick question on the DevOps and cloud architects be writing the infrastructure as code in like modules that people are then implementing, or is it just a high level understanding of here's how the pieces play nice together instead of the DevOps or your platform team's responsibility?
I think it's it's always a delicate line, and you're going to see that in the next one, in the soft skills. I think it's a collaboration. We set a lot of the policies, and the cloud architecture is doing that. And the only way to do a lot of that is prototyping and doing it, and approving that matches up to what we say we should have. But do you want to own it on a daily basis? Do you figure out how it starts, and how does it live after you? How do you hand it off? I think that's up. We're going to write a lot of it. We write a lot. We're starting to write a lot of it here. We're starting that now too, Vibo. I think you know that. So yeah, I mean, I know my guys want to write it, but I think at the end of the day, it has to live in our sysadmins and our DevOps team, and then our dev teams. Because once it's out there, it's not like we're adding resources every day, right? But and then you'll see in another slide, you need to continually review those. So the soft skills, this is what I would say is probably the best part, or I would say this is where makes a good architect from just a technical architect. From the little slide or the movie I showed you, Herding Cats, you have all these competing ideas. Dev teams, dev teams think they can do anything. They want to do everything. I just read an article, let's do that. You got the sysadmin team that says these guys, they try to do everything, stop letting them do everything. InfoSec says you make sure that everything's secure. So you're talking to all these people. How do you talk to them? and get them going all in the same direction. Communication is the key there. Talking to people. You think you're going to sit at your desk and just do infrastructure code, or just learn about Kubernetes or how to run a cluster? Yeah, that's the easy part. Communication skills, that's the hard part. Going out there and really talking to them and getting them on the same page of here's where we're going. Big thing. You think, as a dev, you wrote a lot of code. Architects, we do a lot of writing. We have policies. We're in charge of all the policies for all the cloud resources. How do they set up? How do we manage them? How do we, we do showbacks around here on pricing. We write the standards. Standards and policies are used for audits. If you say you have a policy, this is how we use it, and this is our standard, auditors come in and say, well, what do you have? And let me go see if that's what you actually do. But if you don't, then we get a little tap on the shoulder, and then resources get changed rather quickly. But that's what we write. I can tell you right now, Copilot helps out a lot with that, a lot of this now. 4 years ago, it was a pain in the butt. They're a lot more fun now to write. Handoffs. You do all this technical stuff, you're looking at all this stuff, but at the end of the day, you don't own it. You own the policies and procedures, the standards, but you don't own the day-to-day operation. The dev teams do. The sysadmins do. InfoSec. What are you handing off to them to say, okay, here's our resource. I'm setting up, if anybody stands up an AKS cluster, here's how it operates. Dev teams do this, InfoSec does that. You have to hand it off. You can't just, okay, resource available, you can use it now. With no guidance. How are you going to train them? And of course, design the system, diagrams. How do you put a system together? Visio around here is one of our favorite tools. You might be a Lucidchart person, but you're going to be doing a lot of that. One of the things you might not say, I didn't say, you didn't see I put in VS Code, I didn't put in Visual Studio. You probably spend less time in that than more time in Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Visio. And in Meeting. And hopefully you're a learner. There is something changing in the cloud every month, every day. There's new AI models. There's new AI tools. How do you turn them on? How do you enable them? How do you make sure people are using them correctly? So you got to be out there ahead. What do our teams need? I got to learn about it before they are asking for it. And then last thing is attention to detail, so that I have to do all this. I have to document it. But if I'm a developer, what do I want to know? And I got to write all the details for them. You can't just write down A and Z. You got to fill in the whole alphabet. This is how you do it. This is how we're going to make sure, this is how the branching strategy, so that if you're going to do a Docker container using our automated builds and deployment, here's how you work. This is all the steps you need to do. Here's the approval process. There's a lot of stuff there. You can't just say, go forth and good luck. If you do that, the dev teams think, and everybody else think, the sysadmin, what does the architect do again? They really don't do anything, because everybody then has to figure it out on their own. So those are all the things. How are our dev teams, how are our other teams going to use this? All right, and then the critical thinking, and we're going to see this on the next one. A lot of times, the company you work at dictates a lot of your role, what your concerns are. And then on your solution designs. And I'm going to just click over to this slide so we can talk about that. So I worked at it from startup, I had a whole bunch of different concerns to now. Now they grew from the startup over to here, but you have a lot of different concerns. A large company, you're probably going to be multiple architects. You got people to talk to, people to brainstorm with, people to work with. As a small company, you might be the architect. So everything I talk about, it's on you. You can't ask anybody, it's you. So you have different concerns. At a very large company like Kiewit, billion-dollar company, our job is to protect that revenue. We can't be letting anybody have our data. Can't have any breaches. We got to know that's what we're doing. If you're in a small company startup, your main concern is we better generate some revenue. How do I generate and move fast? Because if I don't generate revenue, we're not even a small company anymore. We're not a company. So you have a little bit different concerns. It's a little bit different competing, but sometimes not. So the big thing here is you're writing standards, operating procedures, policies. And the other one, they both have a lot of securities. When I was at a small company, last thing we did was start, it was like, go, forth, good, use, here's the template, go, use. But then, everybody has security concerns. Depending, it doesn't matter which size you are. At a small company, you monitor the cost. You got to make sure, okay, we got only so much money. Got to make sure. Large company, you normally have budgets. You're showing it back. Here's what this group is using. You're more concerned on that compared to at a small company. I was always worried about how much did we spend last month? Was it too much? We were only planning on spending this much. Who spun up that new SQL server on the wrong SKU? So on a large company, you're going to consult with the development teams. If you're in a small company, you might be right next to them. You might be actually writing some code too. So a lot of different things that go on here. You consult with the platform engineering teams about provisioning. You're the cloud architect. I said you might be the guy actually doing this. You're writing all the infrastructure as code, or you're doing the click ops. I go into the portal, I click here, I click there, click here, click ops. You might just be doing that. You're not got, there's no time for infrastructure as code. We're moving fast. I need it today. Do it now. You're probably putting Azure policies on a large company because you want to make sure what we say are our standards are what happens out there in the wild. Small company, probably don't do any of that. So, key responsibilities. Find out what the requirements are. What do we need as an organizational standpoint? What do we need to do? What do we need to have available to people? Some of the simple things, we got to have logging. We got to have our monitoring. We got to have security. These are all like just given. This is just like, no matter where you're at, this is like breathing air. These are things that are just how every single resource, how do we do all of this? All right. Your job is to interact with the teams. Talk to them. Get out of your seat. See what they're working on. They're not going to tell you. They're not coming over to talk to you because they think you're going to say no. It's just what we do. I actually do say no a lot. No, we're not going to have that side. I said that Noda is on it. One of our solution architects. No, we're not doing that size SKU. We're not doing that. But what do they need? Why do they need it? We do need to look at it. Engage with them. DevOps. If you do that, one of the big things is it's easy to provision. What's the hardest thing to do? Tear it down and get rid of it and not use it again. How many times has we have, and we have a lot of sins here where we create stuff and they might be out there for a year or two before someone says, is anybody using that anymore? But, as an architect, you might want to figure out what do we have out there? What are we using? Do we have a way to tear it down? How do we do in DevOps the code deployment? And then the big thing, and we're going to talk a little bit about POCs, pilots, and implementation. We just went through, we looked at a new technology. We're going to do Kubernetes. We're going to do container apps. We're going to do something like that. What did we do to decide? So proof of concepts, I'm going to go through that real quick. We do a lot of proof of concepts here where we're looking at different technologies where we then try to see if we want to add that into our technology landscape here at Kiewit. Proof of concept at the end of it can be no, we're not going to use it. So first thing that we do around here is I assemble a cross-functional team. Depending on what it is, if we're looking at a database solution, I'm going to get some people from our database and enablement team who are probably going to be the ones I hand it off to. If I'm doing something with our integrations, we're going to have someone from our integration team and our platform engineering and maybe InfoSec. But a lot of times we're going to bring together multiple people. It won't be the cloud architect performing a POC by themselves. If we do that, then it's a fail right away, because we're not allowing other teams to have input into how something could be used, or in either development or in a solution that we have here at Kiewit. One thing we do is when we perform it, big thing is you got to define what you're testing. Why are we even looking at it? What are our use cases? We have a little template we start with, and we have, these are some of the things we fill out now. Why is this a good use case? Why, we don't just test stuff for fun. Is this good? Is this something that we do here at Kiewit that we're trying to solve? Is that why does it make it a good use case? What technology we're going to use? You might be testing something in a container, but you might say, hey, I need an ACR or a container registry. I need that, an Azure container registry with that. I might need a dev pipeline. What are everything I need in order to do a good POC? Big thing, what is your expectations? That we're just going to test it and it's going to look cool. Is it going to save us time in development? My expectation is our deployments will be better. We have inputs, output, and what success looks like. So we have a lot of that stuff. You exercise it, then you document the POC. So like I said, this is a Word document our team works on. We fill out all these sections. We review it, we present it to each other, and then get ideas and feedback. So the biggest thing of a POC, at the end of a POC, the one thing you should have is a decision document. If you're doing a bake-off of different products, if you're doing even on containers, we baked off all the container just recently here at Kiewit, all the different ones, and we have to say, are we implementing them or not implementing? We're adding them to our stack or not? The decision doc is also very good, and I have it. It's a historical document. I know Bob worked here at Kiewit. You were here for 3 years, and then you went to somewhere else. How many people have been at a job for more than 5 years? Other than, I know Matt's been, I've been here now 6. But how many people have been somewhere 10 years? Same job. You haven't been here yourself. Okay. But you're going to find out a lot of times the decisions you make, if you don't document them, no one knows why you guys did it. We had a big technology here that was implemented for a database solution that no one has left who was here when it was implemented. And then one of the questions one of the exec asked around here was, why did we implement that back then? I don't know. No one was there to ask. There was no documentation. There was nothing. I actually know the guy, and he was over at my house, and I asked him. It's an interesting story on that one. But if you start writing and doing these documentations, why you do these POCs? Why am I doing it? Why am I saying yes? And why am I saying yes in this way? Someone 5 years from now can read it and say, oh, that's why. Now, might have fit that 5-year time period, or back 5 years ago. It may need to change now, but at least it's written down. Some of the sections, a simple executive summary. If you don't know your directors, your VPs, keep it to a couple paragraphs. They don't like to read a lot of pages. They're not here, so they can't. But I know that's it's got to be a short summary. We're doing this. This is why. Summarize the whole POC. One of the big things is, what's the cost of it? What's the ROI? Is there any ROI on it? People like to see that. Recommendation. Yes or no? What are we deciding? We did this POC. We like the results. We're going to add it in. And then you put in, like, to move forward, we need an implementation summary. Go ahead.
So one thing I think might be missing is the interfacing with external groups. This is real like IT, it seems like. So like legal or accounting, how much of that are you doing, or is that at a different level of the organization? And it's important because you talked about costs, and that's licensing.
Yep.
You talk about licensing, that's legal. Been there, done that, right? You back and forth with the vendor legal team. And then engaging in the accounting team as well, who, by the way, accountants write the best requirement documents. So if you want some historical documents, go find an accountant.
So, yeah, I mean, on the legal side, yeah, when we go and if we need to know the cost beforehand. So yeah, we know if we're working for a vendor, if it's Azure, we've already done some analysis, what the compute's going to cost. What do we think our monthly run for an app might be? You know, we need to know all that because, you know, and what is the impact? Are we saving or not? All the AI, we look at every AI tool. Santos looks at them a lot, guy in the back here. First thing he does, anything AI, what do you look at? Cost. No, what's about the data? Data privacy, retention, what do they do with that data? So we are looking at that ourselves. But you know, we know that even if it's in Azure, we've already gone through a lot of stuff. And so it's easy for us in Azure as a company to turn on things. But if we look at a third-party AI tool, do they have access to our data? Do they have right to train their own models on our data? We're already reading that because we know if we say yes to it and it has all these bad things in it, legal is going to shoot it down. So we already kind of know because all the contracts, and I mean, we work directly with a lot of the legal team on all contracts. Because when we say yes to we're saying yes to a database transformation tool right now, and that's going through legal. And one of my guys is doing that. I have a data architect on my team. So like on my cross-functional team, even in our emerging technology, we don't just have cloud, we have a data architect too, because we have a lot of database tools that we do. But he's working with our legal team right now to make that. And he knows the cost, and he's working with our a team on that too, and how we're going to pay for it. So we get involved in all of that. So it's a lot easier on the Azure side because we can just go to the cost estimator and see where we're at. And then we do, like, if you're going to switch your compute, we did some analysis that here's our current compute and how we do apps. If we change over to containers, here's what it could look like. Is that going to save us any money? Because if it's not saving any money, why do it? If it's not, we don't just want to do things because the dev teams want to put it on the resume, Matt.
Sometimes tools will be decommissioned as well.
What?
Sometimes the tools will be decommissioned.
Yes, that's right.
Version changes, you have to do it, you know.
Yeah.
There is no option for it.
Yeah, I mean, we have that too. But yeah, I mean, so when we look at stuff, yeah, we have to know all of that stuff. And I mean, that goes all into this, you know, if we're doing a switch, like for this database tool, we have a decision doc. For our container strategy, we did a decision doc. Why are we picking these two and not those two? All right, so I think a lot of times that's the biggest document that we have around here now. So then once you go out of POC, you're going to do a pilot or an implementation. And we have a big discussion. What's the definition of a pilot, a POC, and an implementation? Aren't they kind of all intermixed? And they kind of are. But a pilot means we're just going to implement something, and if it works, we're then going to go heavy in it. Implementing, we're just going heavy. So like some of the database tools, you can't just try it out. You got to go. We moved to a different data platform, and that was an implementation. We're doing a pilot on us like this database transformation tool. If we like it, then we're going to go ahead into it. But you know, you install the provision the resources. You do a security implementation. You know, this might be the first time you do the SSO integration. This might be the first time that you do it. You're hopefully not setting up, or how you're going to set up service accounts that talk to this resource. How you're going to manage all that. Because a lot of times when you do a POC, you don't get everybody's attention to do all that testing, because especially if you're working with a vendor, they don't want to implement it on their side until you buy or give them some cash. And then you might, if you have an enterprise catalog, all your stuff, you're probably in charge of updating that. You then are starting to put together some more documentation. So, hey, we're going to implement this thing. We're going to show it off to we have an architectural review board where we have, I don't know, about 40, 50 people show up, where we're going to show them, here's a new tech, and here's how you use it and how everything works. And we do now these diagrams, these C4 diagrams. We put together platform landscape diagrams of how it actually looks inside of Azure. If that's where it is. we start working on implementation procedures, operating procedures. This is when we write all our procedures during this phase of a new product. One thing I think is if you're a developer and you come into architecture, one of the things is our team is, since you are going to write probably a lot of the examples of how dev teams are going to use that resource in our code. So it's nice that if you already know how to code, you can do that. If you don't, well, I probably wouldn't have hired you. But I think that that's one of the big things. These are the guardrails. I was talking about guardrails. These are the things that you have to do, put in place, so dev teams use the tools correctly. If you just say, go forth, do no harm, the first thing the dev team will do, probably do something like, hey, and then we had this here. Hey, we're having an error. Well, what's the error? I don't know. We don't have any try catches around this, and we aren't logging it anywhere. Well, I took that upon my team that said we didn't put enough guidance around it. And Santosh right away fixed that. So he had to do that. But that's on us. If you tell a team to go forth and do no harm, the first thing they're going to do is say, well, you didn't tell us. Not, that's how we're supposed to do it. And we might think that's just common sense, but that's, don't, like I said, attention to detail. That was on one of my other slides. So, like I said, a lot of stuff you do, documentation. Once again, you didn't see me in here, other than the code examples. I think that's the only one where you're going to be in Visual Studio Code, doing anything. So, go ahead.
It's just a random question. So if you started the project and you added new tool sets and you got approval, you started, buying those tool sets and all, and then in the middle of the project, your data is not supporting that, and you wanted to add the new tool set you wanted to add into the project. In that case, a cloud architect is blamed, or he's good. We will add new budget to the project. Let's say we'll add some more budget. A new tool set is added to the project, and something is wrong with that new tool set as well, because we don't know in the middle of the project until we test the data. We don't, big picture we don't know. So what do we do with that?
So, I think, yeah, I mean, I don't like blame. I don't like that term. I think, yeah, mistakes are going to happen. You're not going to get sometimes, and that's where you go, did you have the right use cases? When these things happen, you got to say, what did we do wrong? And be able to say, yeah, we did something wrong here. We didn't test that scenario. Did we not know it? Did someone not tell us? And did we not interview the right people to find out what the use cases we're solving for? That could happen, but you got to own it and then go fix it. And then so that you don't happen again, but it's going to happen. So whether you call it blame or you take responsibility for it, but you figure out, how do I not have it happen again? And so, because we just had that happen here. We picked a tool for replication of data around here. And of course, we go to start testing it, and they all of a sudden said, oh, it's not supporting this data type. Well, we were told that data type wasn't needing to be supported in the new version. Well, we're finding out, yeah, someday it won't be supported. The company hasn't, that we're replicating the data from, hasn't changed the underlying table structure yet, but they will. Probably in the next 5 years, they are. The plan is to get rid of that data type. So, and this is a product called SAP. We talked to the SAP architect, said, what are the requirements? Oh, you don't need to worry about that. That's not supported in the new version. Do I say there's blame there? Or do we say, hey, they didn't know, we didn't have the use case, and now we're solving for it. Own it, fix it, move on. I mean, that's all we can do. I mean, if you want to say, and then even now we're finding it's very hard on some of these tools on that scenario, but it's going to happen. Own it. And that's what we did. I'm more than willing to say we didn't know. We were told that use case wasn't there. It is there. I even talked to our architects who were sitting on this side of the building for SAP, and they said, oh yeah, it's there right now, but probably in the next 5 years, they're going to convert it away. Well, that didn't help me last summer when we did the POC, and now they're using it. So we went on, we found another tool to solve that problem, and we moved on. Now, does our team like that? The leadership like that? You know, hopefully, you know, you've earned enough credit, you're doing the right things often enough that when these things happen, you're building up some credit all the way along. So yeah, I mean, it happened.
That kind of answered part of that question, but how do you balance the pilot versus full implementation and like security stuff you might be putting in or whatever guardrails versus the agility of being able to go fast, seeing if something's even worth investigating and then rolling it out to everybody else? So how do you say, okay, now it's time in that tool, it's not a big show. How do you make sure that your POC is then like you're building on shaky ground?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of that kind of issue during a pilot. Like, how much will the third party work with us on that kind of stuff? How much, and it normally comes down to how much money we are buying it for that pilot. The POC, a lot of times you're going to get an engineer, and like most POCs we do, we can't get MFA, we can't do SSO. It's just going to be a username password for the users that do that part of the POC when we're testing a third party product. That's just given. We kind of know that. We always ask, but we know the answer almost. Like, okay, but we know when we go to the pilot, we are going to do that kind of stuff because, you know, that they don't take a long time. But we have some of this stuff in our playbook, some of this stuff, and so that we can make sure it's repeatable and do implement it. And once again, cross-functional team. Get out of your seat, talk to InfoSec, tell them what's going on, know what they need, so you don't, say that's a gap. And that's why I said communication, getting out of your seat, walking the halls, going and talking to people is probably the biggest part of your job, to make sure they know what you're doing, and they might actually be able to tell you something. We had our architecture review board just this week on another product, and someone asked it about a security question. Well, yeah, we did the security questionnaire that we always do around here back in November. They looked it up. Yes, there were still some other questions. That's fine. We can go back and revisit it. But, I mean, do as best you can on everything that you're doing. And we're trying to make sure that when an issue happens, we look at our playbook, we look at our use cases, we look at what we're doing, and are we tweaking it every time. All right. What are your activities? So this is like your daily, weekly stuff. Are you going out to the Azure and look at your cost, looking at costs? I mean, are you just know what's out there? Are you reviewing utilization? Are you finding resources out there that no one's using? Do you have any policies out there that maybe people aren't paying attention to? Are they hard policies, soft policies, enforced? Who's doing that? Are you finding out if any of these Azure resources, Azure is good at end-of-lifing stuff or changing it and doing that kind of stuff to it? Who's doing that for you? Are you doing any kind of security review? Like, are people really using? They got an APIM out there. Are they doing what kind of tokens are they doing? How are they doing some of the stuff? Are they handing out API keys? What was provisioned? Who's watching to see what was provisioned last week? Just to say, what are people doing? What's our organization doing? What are we using? Do we even know? And then, are they provisioned correctly? Are you tagging things for certain reasons? And then, are you reviewing the policies that you may have on those? And then someday, every week, hopefully you're looking at new tech. What's out? What's new? The new models. Microsoft rebranding everything that AI. What was cognitive services? What is it, Santos? It was cognitive services. Now it's AI something. They're rebranding everything. You got to know that kind of stuff because, you need to change something in your documentation to match up with their documentation, or our provisioning to match their new provisioning. Annual activities. Maybe review all your resources. What are we using? We have all this technology we said is available, but what are people really using? We approve 100 things, but they're only using 5. Why are we doing 100? All right, this is the most fun part is you wrote all these standards, operating procedures, every year review them. We have to do them. They come up, they ping us, and we have to review them. You know, if you do use Azure policies, are you reviewing them? You know, sometimes it has to be just, you know, put something out there annually to do that. We have approved resources. We're going back through every single one of them. Are coding examples holding up? Are there changes from Microsoft that we should be aware of? Are there a different security posture we should be taking? We're going back through almost all our resources and adding in managed identity. We didn't have managed identity in all our resources. Microsoft didn't have it, but now they do. So not only do we say we're going to do it, we show the examples on how to do it. Because if we don't, our dev teams are probably not going to implement it the way we want to implement it. So yeah, we do integration updates, security changes, anything in the DevOps. These are things you should do annually. You know, is our pipelines that we're using, any changes to them that we need to do. Learning. I tell my guys, I hope you got 4 hours you're putting on your calendar to make sure you're doing some sort of learning every week. I know they're not doing it, but I keep telling them, please do that. I'm not going to hold it against them. I don't want to be someone else telling us something. I want us to be the smartest guys in the room. I like the cloud architect note. If there's something happening in Azure, you should know about it. If you're the cloud architect, why wouldn't you? So figure out, you know, how do you get your Azure news? Are there email subscriptions you're subscribing to on a weekly? Yeah, like I said, block out time. You know, YouTube has a lot of good information on it. A lot of people are making videos. You know, you can take good or bad from them, but at least they tell you some things. People are trying. There are some good guys out there. Microsoft has a lot of good training also, and Pluralsight, if you have that. I'm going to brag on Kiwit. Kiwit allows their employees and the KTG, they all have, each employee has a $4,000 budget to go to a training of some sort. You pick it. Could be subscriptions to Pluralsight or some other tools. Could be, hey, I'm going to go to this conference. And if I say, if you go to a conference, go to learn something. Try to bring something back for the team. Don't just go there and, well, I was there for a while, but I was at Disney World, so I went off to the parks too in the afternoon. We have a lot of that happen, to be honest with you. But I want my guys, you know, if you're going to a database one, here's some things that we need to know about. You know, what if you're going there, what are you trying to research? I know Santosh, who works here, went to Google. He learned about some Gemini stuff. He saw some really cool stuff. Really excited when he came back. That's what I like. You learned something. You're excited about it. So I love the fact that here at Kiwit, I mean, this is like the only place I have ever seen that send you to a conference and you have a budget. If you don't use it, actually your boss asks, what are you doing? At least I tell my guys, what are you doing this year? Where are you going? So yeah, go to a conference in person, you know, with a purpose. That's one thing. And if you do a class, try to go in person if you get more out of it than sitting in your basement. All right, summary. I went through the skills, some of your responsibilities and all the activities. A lot here. I mean, I think I got done by 7 o'clock, so I think I'm on time. Any questions on that? That's all I have. Go ahead.
So as architects, we create a lot of documentation. Decision documentation is one of the documents. How do you make sure that that document lives more than 10 years or
I know.
At times, you know, we live in dynamic environments where the software chosen for documentation changes, and often they are not compatible with each other. So I was just wondering if you came across any experiences like that and how you managed that.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I mean, my belief on SharePoint is that's where all good documents go to die. If you throw it in SharePoint, it will get lost sooner or later. But, you know, that is, you know, I think at least here we have a nice team site for architecture, for our solution architecture teams posting documentation that they're producing. We're producing ours in the same directory. So at least for architecture, we have a nice repository, but that's where our published stuff goes. So it's a lot of that stuff that you see. Standard and operating procedures goes to a whole nother team that they're going to tell us every year, send us a ping, they're tracking it for us so that when we get audited, our auditors know they can go there. They're going to just pick some handful of ones and then read them and then say, show me how you do that. How do you make sure? So we have some that go there. I think we at least now have our team site that we do stuff. And not by that mean a SharePoint team site that we have that is just that anybody in the company or KTG can get to. It has our published documents, and then we have our own teams where our working documents are. So yeah, I mean, that is, how do you manage that? Because am I going to be here in 5 years or 10 years? Santosh or Mo or Matt? That's my big thing is SharePoint's a good way to lose documents.
I think co-pilots are of great help. I mean, to
That will help too.
summarize most of it. I've seen organizations who are implementing Copilot and connect to some of those old SharePoint sites to summarize and get all the data that they require.
The funny thing on that is, we renamed the team to Emerging Technology and Architecture. And I use Copilot to do like, hey, write me up what our thing is. And if you ever use Copilot, up there it has like, are you using the web or it's work or web? I had it on web. It did a great job of summarizing everything based on all the documents we already wrote. So I was impressed. That is a good way that Copilot will use your documents. And sometimes it's kind of reassuring that.
Yeah, I know you mentioned in your presentation that 4 years ago, this was not an option. So, but I use Copilot. I cannot use it at work because I don't work for the emerging technologies group. We have an emerging technologies group that group is evaluating how Copilot is going to be used. But I use it extensively for my personal use and it's pretty handy.
That's a good point. I like that because that was funny. When I wrote this thing, I was like, man, this dress, how does it get so spot on? But it had used some of the other documents on how we do new technology, how we do all of our other work. I just rebranded us from cloud architecture because we were doing more than just cloud architecture. We're looking at all new technology as it comes into my team into Kiewit. So I wanted to rebrand us a little bit. We're not just cloud architecture.
I think it's how you leverage it because when I'm working on my personal stuff, if there is something when I ask it to summarize, I also ask counter questions. Did I miss any considerations? Did I miss something? So it will actually propose several other ideas, which sometimes doesn't make sense. Sometimes they are. And I think like, why I didn't think about it when documenting or doing that stuff.
And then run up against each other, get the results.
All right. Any other questions?
So when you're doing a concept or whatever, I know, you mentioned the issue with the use cases. You can miss that or whatever, but how do you try to minimize that? You know as much as you can for your concept. So like you describe it, you missed some.
I mean, it goes back to, the first thing we do when we do one of these is try to get a cross-functional team. And then it's really just how much those other team members engage with you on helping you make sure. And you don't write things in a vacuum. You don't execute them in a vacuum. As soon as you write it, we have stand-ups. You may go through our artifacts that you do after stand-up, and you can do your show and tell in your agile ceremonies that we all do. You'll present that and we'll give feedback. Hopefully you get that from everybody on the team. If there are people aren't participating in the team, you may never one thing you might find out, you don't get invited back to be on the team. If you're just going to sit in a meeting, I can guarantee you, I'm not inviting you back to the next time I put a team together because you're not adding any value. So the only way we can minimize it is it's not yours. You're not working in a vacuum. The best part, like you're here at Kiewit, there's a ton of people to lean on. If you don't, that's on you. If you're in a big company and you don't lean on other people, asking their opinions, how do things work? You don't have to be a Superman and try to figure it out all on your own. That's what I like about sometimes when you work for a big company, you have that. Especially, I think it depends on the culture, if that your culture is collaborative. I think we're here, we have a very collaborative experience here. But we still have a lot of people, I think he's on if you ask him, who think it's their job. I know best. I'm not going to take anybody's advice. He runs into those people. But that's why I say, it's a collaborative thing. And that's the only way you can mitigate it. You aren't going to get it. You're not going to do everything right.
And I think it's also, there is a difference between idealistic
Yeah.
and realistic. And I think an architect actually tries to bridges the gap.
Yeah.
What's realistically possible with a certain technology. There will always be edge use cases. Something can always go wrong. But till the time you are doing your job in identifying that use case and researching on it, ensuring fulfills every requirement, I think it should be good.
Perspective.
I was wondering, I've been on a project with, it was a fabric, fabric came out in November 23 and it started early 24. And everything was a sunny day and it didn't go very well. We were using a provisioned SQL serverless tool. And what the question I have for you is, how much do you try to keep your finger on the pulse of these new products that are coming out from the vendors and what's being read about them in, say, Reddit or other sources that you have, just to kind of keep an idea of what's vapor or what's real?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, when we did a data analysis project and we went to all the vendors and we did a big bake off and Microsoft had a lot of vapor there and we're working toward, and now they're into fabric. This is pre-fabric. So, I mean, that was, you just do your due diligence and and it's nice when go back to big company, small company. We have the resources here that Microsoft, I can pick up the phone and they'll bring some experts and we'll just drill them. I mean, that's the nice part about being here at Kiewit. I mean, we have a big spend. We get white glove treatment. When I'm at a small company, you're not going to get that. I mean, I barely got the Microsoft evangelist. I had a partner. The only way I got that was the consulting partner I had brought them in because I was spending a lot of money on consultants. I don't have, so it's how do you keep a handle on it? We're trying to do bake-offs, improve, like, and we were doing the database. Big platform decisions like database type of stuff is a big bake-off, not a very small POC. Like when we do containers, I would say that's a small POC. When we do anything data, it's pretty big because it's all about the data here. I mean, the amount of data that we have and what we can do with it now with AI, it's a big deal. So, I don't know if that answers, but, we ran into a lot of that with pre-fabric stuff, Microsoft.
Well, it's not just Microsoft too. I mean, I heard a joke out there that why are there so many snowflake jobs, right? And you can guess the punchline. So, it's any vendor that's, they're selling you a sunny day and when the rubber meets the road, it's, not quite as sunny.
And my pro tip would be if you go to like Microsoft, I think it's mvp.microsoft.com, MVPs in different focus areas. They are people in the field, but not 100% like an evangelist for Microsoft. So they'll probably give you a more real world. Most of them will reply to an email. So you don't have to have like a support contract or anything. They'll tell you how it is because they want to come in and help you build the thing. And they're not going to sell you like Microsoft, right? Like they're not tied bonuses to Fabric spend. They might come in and be like, yeah, you're going to be happier here. And that'll be their field of expertise. Because they're deep enough in the technology to tell you that you're going to be mad day 2 of when you sign the ink instead of just day 1 or whatnot. That's a pro tip I've done. So I'll reach out to people in different fields and be like, hey, you talk about this a lot. Here's my use case. Am I going to be mad at you tomorrow if I decide to go down this path? And a lot of times they're usually pretty candid of like, don't do that. Use, like Snowflake was another one you brought up. Use AWS, use Google, use whatever.
Right now in my organization, we're trying to really decide between Azure and AWS. And I just wanted you to share a little bit from your experience, how exactly you move from a step of we want to move some things from on-prem to the cloud and picking those vendors and some things that you should watch out for and pass on from your experience.
Well, I mean, that's a big decision there. I mean, 'cause, you don't just make that lightly, because once you're in, you're in. Because it's hard, once you go to one path, you're not gonna switch. So, in my experience, I've been in Azure mainly because I came up with the dev stack, and so it just, went nice with that. I know from some experience with, in some conversations with like AWS, it's really comes like with some of that. One is going to be availability of resources in the regions that you want. You got to be aware of that. How do you want to build some things? Are you a SQL Server shop? Are you a MySQL? Are you a Postgres SQL? Some of that will dictate, because if you're a Microsoft SQL, they all do support it. Microsoft's going to have better support for you. So, some of that kind of stuff you need to take, weigh that kind of stuff. But if you're more open source and you want to do some of that, and you're more, you're a Java shop or Python, then .NET. All those, I would take those into equation, because really price is not going to really fluctuate too much. You're spending $1 million, or you're going to spend $1.1 million or $1.2 million. You're already spending $1 million. So is that where? So a lot of times it's not price. It's really what resources and where you want them. That's what you need to base your decision on. So if you're a heavy .NET, SQL Server, you're going to find very, very good support in Azure, probably better than anywhere else. But if you're writing a lot of Python and you want to write a lot of lambdas, and you're going to execute a lot of them, and you're going to be hitting Postgres or MySQL, AWS may be where you need to be.
And I think it also depends on your overall spend. I've seen these CSPs offering substantial discounts if you are forecasting good enough spend.
Yeah, that's what we got here. Microsoft, we had a bid out for a new big service, and Microsoft came in really good.
Another reason could be if you are looking for specific services in cloud platforms. For example, OpenAI makes a very good case. I've seen so many customers who want to consume OpenAI and it's only available in Azure, so they want to go to Azure. But
if you're a Gemini, you want to do Gemini with BigQuery and use their, and you're going to be in GCP.
With that, kind of like, from my experience, that sometimes these decisions like infrastructure surrounding infrastructure. And so my previous company, we were AWS, and we went only AWS. We were fully .NET or Microsoft, but we went AWS because at that time there was just appeared Lambda, and there was nothing comparable in Microsoft. So we implemented that. We integrated Lambdas, but it was using Python. It was a lot of pain. Every time we're like, while we're in the AWS cloud, we might needed to wait that year or whatever to see the competition from Azure. Just the comment.
Did that answer your question? Kind of really, you have to weigh out. There's a lot to that question, but I think it's really what is your company? What are you building? What kind of apps? And so, because for us, throwing a .NET app on an app service plan, back in the day, that was the easiest thing to do.
And I think that decision should be documented to your point. It should go into strategy saying, why did you choose Azure or AWS? So that 5 years down the line, if there is someone new who comes up, he or she should know that why Azure or AWS was selected first place.
I would also say, if you're big enough, like, pit them against each other, right? They want market share, each one. And so use that to your advantage.
They're a little bit different in their aggressiveness. They're salespeople. I think
Bring Google in the mix, then you will see how aggressive Google is these days to acquire customers. If you'll see numbers in last 2 years, Google is gaining more and more customer base.
the salesman around here is very aggressive. Eric is very aggressive.
Pretty great too. AWS is like if you want to build everything with Lego bricks, and Azure has a lot of pre-canned stuff. And if their can fits the way you do dev, it's really great in Azure. If it doesn't, it's really painful. So I think just.
But also AWS is basically very prescriptive, A, B, C, D, whereas Azure, it's a free for all. They do have really good standards, but you can do it several ways to achieve the same. GCP is really nice. Underlying services are really great. UI parts and all of that kind of stuff are really the biggest pain points and headaches that I have to deal with.
Any other questions? Okay.
In the case of doing a concept and the architecture, for example, coding, you just pour resources from.
Yeah. If they're available. And that's, I say, you know, we don't have to do it alone. But what we do is, you know, I think at least our cloud architecture team and what we're doing, emerging tech, is we're developing playbooks and we're trying to exercise them and tweak them every single time so that we can make this a repeatable, you know, churning out sausage. You know, we can put it in the grinder and get it out. But, you know, it took us a while to get that. We were doing every one uniquely until we said, you know, we're kind of doing the same work. Let's document what we're doing so that we can do that. And then who do we need on the team for this POC, this project? Go get them. You know, and sometimes it doesn't have to be full time. Maybe it's only 10 hours. Maybe, hey, at least show up to the meetings and read our documentation, say what we're doing wrong or right. But yeah, there's nothing, you know, the best part about a big company, you don't have to do everything on your own. Being a small company, sometimes you're going to have to lean on people, get in their face and ask for help because they may not have time because they're running pretty hard too. But that might be what you enjoy too. You like working that hard and getting that energy of I'm solving the world's problems. All right, in the back again.
So maintenance is one of the things that, you know, you need to keep on doing on, you know, regular basis. How do you budget for that? Especially when there is code upgrade required along with the infrastructure updates. And generally it's the software teams who do that. So when you do the budget, do you consider the resources time there? Like how do you manage that? And then how do you communicate back that to the management?
So, I mean, yeah, that's, you know, every company, how they do their time accounting and, you know, so here, of course, everything around here has to start with a K for Qubit. But our project management process, I have out there what I just have approved technology as a bucket for billing time against. And I put so much, you know, in there for the year and saying that we need to review all this stuff. It doesn't just happen by itself. Now, I can tell you from a project management standpoint, that's also the first thing that goes over when we got to get this other POC or this other work done. But I try to come back around and okay, now we're going to go back and do it again. And so, you know, it's a very delicate balance. I do put a bucket. We have it in here. It's called approved technologies, and we're supposed to make sure here's a list. Let's go down the list. I have them on our Agile board, our ADO board. I have every one of the ones that we're supposed to hit this year and review the code, how people are using it. Are we doing it right? You know, but I can tell you, I'm not going to get them all done. I mean, at least I'm honest. But at least I know we should be doing this. I don't know what, you know, like tomorrow there might be like, hey, this other person wants us to look at this product. We need to get that right on it. And I'm like, we're right in the middle of this one right now. Can I do that in 3 weeks? That means this other stuff's going to back up. But, you know, that's also part of the fun too, that we know we're going to have new stuff, old stuff. We're doing all that. I think as a cloud architect, if you're on a good team that you're working on all that stuff, it's fun. There's always something new. All right, Matt, you're going to give away surprises.
So we have two